So thanks for joining me. This is going to be a very quick fire 15 minutes because there's an awful lot to get to, but what we're going to do at the end of this is make the full report available for you to download. So there'll be a link in the World Football Summit newsletter following the event. So just to introduce who we are, we're Footballco. We are building the football content media business of the future. Every day we publish more football content on more platforms in more languages than any other company. And this means that we're sitting on a huge amount of fan insights and data around content consumption and how fans engage with the game. And that fuels what we do as a publishing business, but also means that it fuels our work for our commercial partners. We're also the #1 producer of Arabic language football content. We have 3 brands in Arabic: Cora, which will be familiar to anyone in the region, which is the #1 football website; Goal, which in Arabic, which is the #2, and then Indivisa, which is our women's brand, focusing on women's football in the kingdom and the region, which is the leading women's football brand. And in Saudi, every month we reach half the adult population of Saudi Arabia already engages, reads, watches something that from those 3 brands. And just last week, we've opened our new regional headquarters in Riyadh, and I am 1 week as a Riyadh resident, so it's nice to be on home turf. So we're going to look into Saudi football fandom landscape. Now, this will come as no surprise to anyone in this room or attending this event. Football is head and shoulders the #1 followed sport in the kingdom, and then it's daylight towards anything else, more than twice as popular as any other sport. We're also seeing in terms of playing, we've seen a lot about women's football at the conference, and we're seeing that as well. So 63% of Gen Z men are actively playing the game, and 1 in 3 women are now playing the game as well. The appetite for the game, though, as big as football is here, there is still room for growth. We're seeing a huge interest from fans to consume more, to be more involved with football. And what we're showing here is a difference between the results from our Saudi Arabian fans and around the rest of the world. And you can see it's getting on for not far off. Twice as many people will be following football even closely over the next few years. And from a women's game, Saudi Arabia is now following the trajectory that we're seeing around women's football around the world. 28% of people from the global sample are going to be more interested in women's football, and that's 23% here in the kingdom. More interested in women's football than they were a year ago. What are they interested in? Unsurprisingly, the domestic league is #1. The passion around the national team means the World Cup is always a hugely followed event. But what we're also seeing is interest around the regional tournaments and the big European leagues. So this is really, this is an audience of fans here that are world football citizens. Yeah. In terms of European teams followed, no surprise if you spent any time talking to anyone here that Real Madrid is the #1 followed team, closely followed by Barcelona, and then the Premier League, big hitters come in. And we separate football fans into 6 core segments. And where Saudi Arabia over-indexes compared to the rest of the world is in 2 key areas. One is what we call super fans that are hugely engaged with the game. They're consuming content every day. And they're nearly twice as likely to be here in Saudi Arabia than the rest of the world. And the second one, which is an interesting one, is around the connection with players. And I talked about this on the panel yesterday, around players being the primary route to the game for young fans. And again, we're seeing that nearly double in Saudi Arabia than we're seeing elsewhere. So what we see here, again, comparing the world with Saudi Arabia, is we've actually seen in Saudi Arabia for the first time there are more fans interested in players than there are interested in teams. So whilst teams and team support is still important, it's the players that are really engaging with the young audiences. 71% of Saudi fans say that they feel very or quite connected to the players, which is 24 percentage points higher than globally. And then 32% of those 71% consider themselves very connected to the players here. Yeah. Remarkably, for someone of my age, 1 in 3 Gen Z Saudi fans, and I referenced this point yesterday, said that they will follow a different team if their favourite player leaves. So what this also means is that from a brand perspective and from a sponsorship perspective, you know, the impact of club partnerships, which gives you player access or access to players through individual endorsement deals, means that it's a great route to connecting with young fans, with 66% of fans saying they feel more positively towards a brand that is sponsoring their favourite player. And amongst the well-connected, the people that feel very connected, that jumps to nearly 80%. It's not just players, you know, for everyone here from clubs and leagues, we're seeing that across the board. You know, the impact that football sponsorship has on young fans. They see it, they appreciate it, and they change their behaviour as a result. So fan connections are driven by, you know, showing the player's human side as well. I think we talk a lot about this in terms of what we do as Footballco, but also in our work for our commercial partners, is thinking beyond the 90 minutes. The engagement now is always on. And often it's around telling a human story around that, rather than just the action on the pitch. You see so many brands all activating at the same time, whether it's the European Champions League, and it becomes quite noisy. So what you see here is some of the attributes that Saudi fans resonate with players, you know, and it's not just about their ability on the pitch. Unsurprisingly, the global stars still dominate. Some of them are here now. But what you'll also see here are some of the local players as well. It's not just the international players that young fans in Saudi Arabia look up to and are inspired by. So we move on to fan engagement. I talked about this yesterday. What we're seeing here in the Kingdom is the #1 trigger of football fandom is now gaming, is playing video games and then moving over as the gateway into real football. That doesn't appear with fans over 25. It's more traditional. They watch football on TV. They're friends. They're taken to a game by their father or they're playing football. So as you see here, social media and video games are closing the gap on the traditional routes to market, which would be broadcast, you know, and watching live games on TV. And it's even more powerful here in the Kingdom. Unsurprisingly, with I think 65% of the population here being under 30, and we're seeing social media in the Kingdom is now the #1 source of football content and knowledge for young fans in Saudi Arabia. So this enables sort of Gen Z fans to connect with their friends over football and through social media. And what we're seeing here is, you know, you can see that pundits and opinions of former players is becoming less important, and it's that connection and those social connections with each other, with the friends, that is driving it. Whereas you can see that that's different, it's slightly skewed where pundits and former players with an older generation, if you watch the presentation of sort of beIN Sports and the Champions League, it's still 4 old blokes with suits sat talking about it. It's no wonder that people under 25 aren't really watching that. The social channels, these are the numbers, their preferred platforms, you know, YouTube, X, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, all important, but the over-indexing here compared to the rest of the world is on Snapchat and X. So they're the more preferred channels here compared to the global sample. And there's a range of needs that fans expect to fulfill through content, like what do they want, you know, and we break this down into 4 key pillars. They want to know stuff, you know, it's fact-driven, it's the latest score, when is the game, how can I find out who's playing tonight, where do I watch it, how do I get tickets? It's understanding it, you know, it's educational stuff, it's the history of the club, it's the history of the player. But what we're seeing is a real sort of move into this emotional-driven content. Fans want to feel something from the players, and that's not necessarily linked to the game. The game can make you feel something, it can make you feel amazing, or it can make you feel terrible if your team loses. But it's around the content around that. They want an emotional connection to the players, to the clubs, to the game. And then the final part is do, you know, help me buy something. You know that I'm an Al Hilal fan. Show me where I can get the new jersey. My team is playing tonight. Al Nassr are playing the Champions League. Where do I watch it? What time does it kick off? And what we're seeing now in Saudi Arabia amongst young fans, as I talked about, is that the feel content is the #1 type of content that they want. It's not a huge difference, but it has definitely elevated over the last sort of 18 months that we've been looking at this region. So you see here, so we break down no's like, you know, update me, keep me on trend, make sure that I don't embarrass myself in front of my friends by not knowing things. Yeah? Understand, educate me, give me context, give me perspective. Feel, which is where we need to focus, is entertain me, first and foremost, and then inspire me. And the final part is connect me or help me find out. And they're the 4 key pillars that we put across all of our content, across our channels. So we'll see here, this is the difference based on the global sample from the Saudi audience. So they're 10 percentage points more in terms of inspire me, 9% more in terms of enrich my love of football, keep me on trend, make me feel part of something. So you're starting to get a picture of what fans are looking for if you're at a club, or if you're at a brand, or if you're at the league. So the key takeaways really from this are football is massive in Saudi Arabia, but it's poised to get even bigger. You know, participation and video games are the key drivers to fandom and engagement, and we spoke to Monica Stab yesterday talking about the work of the regional training centres, getting young girls involved and participating in the game. Whether they become a professional footballer or not is not the point. That's part of it, but it's also, it's building in that lifelong connection with the game and love of football. So even if they don't make it as a player, they become a fan. As we've seen globally, women's football is exploding, and it's exploding in the kingdom as well. So I think for the brands in the room, you know, look beyond the obvious. Like, there are incredible stories to be told in women's football here in the kingdom. We produced a documentary a year ago for FIFA in partnership with the Federation around the rise of women's football in the kingdom when the women's team got its first FIFA ranking. If you haven't watched it, watch it. It's called Destined to Play. The stories of the girls in that film are incredible. You know, really, really inspiring. Saudi fans are massively engaged, you know, and increasingly player first. You know, we talked about this yesterday with Man United and how they're building their strategy around that and leveraging the star players whilst they have them. The appeal for players over teams is even more marked amongst Gen Z and younger fans. Saudi fans respond positively to brands that are sponsoring football. It's incredibly less cynical than it is in other parts of the world because it's seen as supporting the game, fueling the growth. And the final thing is, you know, fans want to be entertained. Listen to them. They want to be inspired. You know, we talk about how, for young fans, for Gen Z, we did another piece of research leading into the Euros, where Gen Z, 50% of Gen Z fans that we interviewed said that their enjoyment of the tournament would not be diminished if they didn't watch a single game live. So just think about that for a minute. It's not about the 90-minute window anymore. It's about snackable moments. It's about plugging your content into the conversations that are happening fan to fan on social media. Yeah. So we at Footballco, and very much why we are here, and our mission here is that we believe that over the next 10 years, because, you know, obviously there is a very big announcement on the horizon, inshallah. But we believe that over the next 10 years, football will be the cultural bond that connects the youthful audience of Saudi Arabia to the rest of the world. That's why we're here, and that's the role that we want to play. Thank you. So let's say, shukran. And as I say, there will be, we will be making the full report available for download, so keep an eye on the World Football Summit newsletter or on our LinkedIn channels, and it's available for free to download. Thank you.